I almost feel as if we're in the temple today. We rise, we sit, we rise. I opened the prayer book of my grandparents, the Jewish prayer book, this morning, and had the memory of being a child standing in the temple with my grandfather, praying those prayers. And it's nice to hear those prayers today, both in our ritual and in the hymn that we just sang. So I can't help myself, and because we replaced the readings with that litany, I have a reading anyway. And this is from Marge Piercy, one of my favorite poets, from one of her, I believe, greatest books of poetry called The Moon is Always Female. It goes like this: a dream 200 times the same. The shore can be red rocks, black or gray, sand dunes or barrier reef. The sun blazes, the sky roars a hard blue. Blue is policeman. The water is kicking, the waves leap at the shore like flames out of control. The sea gnashes snow-capped mountains that hurl themselves end over end, blocking the sky. A tidal wave eats the land, rearing and galloping, tumbling and with tangled mane, the horses of the surf, with mad eyes, with snorting nostrils and rattling hooves, stampede at the land. I am in danger, yet I do not run. I am rooted, watching, knowing that what I watch is also me. Speaking of her dream, I just realized reading that it's a connection to the news we are seeing of Colorado, and our prayers also to the people there and to all of you who have family in that part of Colorado. If you spent any time here in this church, you know that I'm an advocate for dreaming, like Marge Piercy, I believe. Not only dreams of the night, but also of the day. Researchers now are saying that daydreaming, or what they call mind wandering, actually gives us a workout in our memory. That working memory and the mental space that allows the brain to juggle multiple thoughts simultaneously happens in a daydreaming. Is sort of a quality that helps our minds function, especially in the creative way. And so I give you permission today, go ahead, daydream through this sermon. And I've said more than once that the dream, or the land of the night, is a healthy part of who we are, a part that teaches us about ourselves and the world and gives us reminders of what is important. So reflecting on that image of Marge Piercy, the dream she describes is also me. Last week I spoke of the theme year of the creative spirit for the church and our city. I apologize if it felt like an attack on Dallas. I was speaking actually from my own struggle. I was speaking from a deep personal and temporary struggle in returning, with finding grassroots and creative emergent communities outside of commercial interests. So please don't misinterpret. I love being here. My critique is only in the excitement of this year and what it could do for us in the city. But today I want to speak more personally about the creative spirit, the spirit in your life and mine, that is in our personal interaction with what I call the creative spirit. And it happens in the world of dreams and symbols. Monday, I woke up with the feeling of a knife in my stomach, a fierce headache to boot, and a slight temperature. I know something's been going around, and I thank you for any of you who passed it to me. I apologize for any who I passed it to. But as happens in those kinds of illnesses, when you're curled up in a fetal position, begging the God of many names to remove this thing from your shoulders and your belly, I woke, or semi-woke, on Monday in the middle of the day with a vision of sorts. It was more like the end of a dream, just an image, backlit in golden light, silhouetted in shadow, wait for it, a horse looking at me. I didn't know what to make of it, though I was expecting Jesus. It wasn't even a horse with Jesus' face. It was just a horse. The image was vivid enough, though, for me to remember it and carry it with me through those 3 or 4 days while I fought the bug. That kind of thing happened to me. This happened to me a few times before. Once when I was in seminary, when I was struggling seriously with remaining in seminary and the call of ministry, I was deep in meditation. I was practicing Zen at the time. I was facing the wall, and in the meditation, the face that I hoped was God emerged in front of me. When I looked closer, I realized it was my therapist. The face said to me, "It's okay." Oh, the letdown. But it was the vision I needed at that moment. Just like the horse, I now understand, was the vision of strength, saying, you have the strength to go through this minor illness. The vision of my therapist saying, it's okay, was what I needed to get through that moment. It doesn't happen to me all the time. I don't see visions all the time. I just remove that concern of yours. But these things do seem to come in times of need. And I don't believe that they are supernatural in some way, but the soul bringing the message that we need at the time. This most holy, non-verbal guidance that happens in all our lives, certainly in the forms of dreams, and more dramatically in those vision moments. I believe they exist as guides if we can pay attention to them, spiritual notions that take some deliberate practice on occasion to know what they are and how to interpret them. I think we experience these kinds of things in what we call the déjà vu, or other breaks in time and space as statements from the unconscious urging our attention, or clearing space within us like the daydream to grasp a more clear awareness of what is happening in our lives. And I don't believe they are just in our heads either. I believe they have meaning in and of themselves. They come from the world of symbols and myth, which we modern people pay less and less attention to every day. One person who approached this idea, this notion that the world of myth and symbol comes to us as spiritual guide was Carl Jung. He came from the psychological side of this. He tried to connect the concept of story and myth and symbol as an interface with the soul. Jung sought answers to the soulful questions that he was trying to work through. And one of those main concerns that he had was that he found an incoherence in his religious life with what he believed and what he understood with what he was taught. He was the son of a conservative preacher who he realized didn't believe either, but taught the Calvinist theology. So he believed that he understood that his dad was living in an incoherent way with what he was doing. The kind of incoherence in his religious and spiritual life pushed him to seek for answers to questions that he had, to find meaning beyond the system of belief that he had grown up in, much like many of you. He no longer believed that God was his caretaker. So he delved deeply into his inner life to mine the symbols that came through him, the visions, the dreams. What he found was a truth in the symbols that lived beyond the historical interpretations he was taught in the church. He found a rebirth in embracing those same symbols that the church used, but were far older and deeper than the church itself. As if the meaning of the symbol predated their use in religion, in the culture he lived in, and in him. They came through him to speak the truth that he needed to hear. Now, if I understand Jung, I get that what he was doing was trying to embrace the visions and dreams that he was having as part of him, like Marge Piercy described. That dream that she was watching was also her. He wasn't storing away either. He wasn't pushing away the dark shadows of his life, trying to not deal with the tough parts of his life or his struggles or his demons. He was welcoming them in as parts of himself in pursuit of freedom. Now here is a direct tie to our theme year today and why I'm talking to you about this. The way Jung brought his demons into view was through art. He made paintings, not as a painter, but as someone who was exploring his inner life. He allowed the images to come through his hand in paint and drawing. And he did this in what is known today as the Red Book, something that we will be studying here in the church. And we invite you later in October to come see and talk about the Red Book. I want to show you some of these images. These images come from the creative impulse. They are not great works of art. They are part of the mind and the soul of a man who allowed them to come through. That creative impulse wants us to pay more attention to the images in our lives, to those things that come through us, rather than to our schedules and to our to-do lists and the tape loops about what we believe. These came from Jung's creative impulse, asking him to explore their meaning. And maybe in your interaction with them, you found some meaning. What did the images raise for you? You may not have an answer. You may say they were boring. You may say they were interesting. They may just wash over you, and that's okay. For me, I see the demon in the form of the snake from Christianity, the one that gave humans wisdom, now transformed, not as demon, but as giver of meaning. I see themes of journeys and depths unseen. I see the moon at night shining in the light coming through the trees, asking the viewer to be grounded in awe. I see the jewel of wisdom protected by dragons. I see plants being nourished as symbols of life and rebirth. I see confusion. I thought I saw a character from Sherlock Holmes, but maybe that's just me. The reality is that it isn't one thing that I see that is important. It is that the symbols nourish and challenge us. It would be a fool's project to try to describe these for you. Jung actually said, anyone who seeks to understand any work of art is like a man who tries to understand a Gothic cathedral under its historical and technical and finally mineralogical aspect. He asked, but where is the meaning of the marvelous edifice? How have we understood the builder in seeing the building? The creative mind draws us deeper in ways, whether it be our dreams or visions or the works of art, draws us deeper and asks us to engage with what is below the surface of who we are. On my way to church this morning, I was listening to the gospel station, as I am wont to do. I don't know if you knew that about me. And I listened as the song, almost a sermon, kept repeating and repeating. God will fix your life. God will fix it all. Just turn it over to Jesus. And I wondered what that meant for us who expanded the idea of God to the God of many names. And I realized again that our God in this case can be the God of the creative impulse that pushes us to see and delve into the darkness of who we are and allow the many answers to emerge. That it doesn't have to be just one answer. It doesn't have to be just one story that carries us through the highs and lows of life. It can be the multifaceted spiritual openness that we can create to the dreams and visions that come from a God of sorts that is beyond time, yet planted within us, this urge, this creative impulse. That God desires for us no more confusion, no more combativeness, no more self-absorption, no more despair. That God asks us to lay the burdens of our lives in the hands of the creative spirit that speaks through us as it did to people 10,000 years ago. The horse appeared this week, and from my pain I nodded to it in agreement. Yes, we are stronger than we think. When the face appeared, I nodded, yes, it will be okay. We can know these for what they are, not messages from a distant God, but our spirits calling us to know the wholeness and the health that is within. 2 days into my illness, I had another dream like the one Marge Piercy described. This time, I was walking over a bridge that was going over a river. The river always depicting the spiritual life. And on this bridge were groups of people. And they were grouped in periods of time from the late 1800s all the way up to the present moment. As they watched me walk over the bridge, I felt their approval. I woke feeling a kind of joy in their presence. I understood that dream early as the sun rose on Wednesday to say to me, remember, part of a longer history than your own. You see, my family arrived in America in the late 1800s, immigrants from Italy and Russia. By the way, some of our Jewish ancestors, we now understand, my ancestors, arrived here on the shores of Corpus Christi, making me maybe more part Texan than you are, some. These immigrants became Americans as time passed, eventually leading to me. We each have that same line that looks back. Each of us a special part of the human journey which goes on beyond us and asks us who we are, asks us to embrace a joy in who we are today. That creative spirit was the spirit I needed when I woke up Wednesday morning. That spirit lurks within us, not as something owned by the artists, but something we can call God. wanting us, loving us, imploring us to ground our lives in the soulful life that calls us to dream, to be strong, to know all is well, and to take joy in our lives. I don't know if you can make sense of any of this for your life, and I apologize for my dreams entering yours. And I'm pretty sure I don't know if there's any connection here to Yom Kippur or the Pride Parade. But that is what is on my soul today. That hope that the creative spirit lurks within you, and you know it as friend. So be it. Amen.